Today, we're going to be talking about engine downsizing. Now, this is a bitter pill for us to swallow. The sound of 8, 10, 12 cylinders is soon going to be replaced with the sound of silence. So when Mercedes announced that this thing, the new C63 S E Performance, was going to lose half the cylinder count and replace it with an electric motor, it had most of us banging our fists on the table, demanding the return of the old twin-turbo V8. But AMG is trying to win you over with some truly staggering numbers and some very interesting F1 technology. Today, we're just having a first look, but we're going to go through all the details. So let's get to it. I'm Cam Tate, this is PistonHeads.
Remember to head over to pistonheads.com to research and buy your next car. For the past couple of decades, the C63 has been synonymous with V8 power. Even the name, inaccurately admittedly, serves as a nod to the 6.2-litre V8 that debuted in the W204 in the late 2000s. But the AMG C only gained V8 power with the W202 generation with the C55. Before that, we had V6 power in the form of the C32. In fact, the C-Class can be traced all the way back to the 190E Evo and Evo 2, both of which were four-cylinder cars.
So the idea of a four-cylinder hot C-Class isn't nearly as sacrilegious as you might think, and the motor that we have in here is a real peach. It's the M139 2-litre motor you find in the A45 and C43, only it's mounted longitudinally, and it has a larger electronically assisted exhaust turbocharger that can be pre-spooled up, so you're always on the maximum torque curve. Apparently, it's technology taken straight out of Brixworth. Those are the engine boffins that have given Lewis Hamilton that rocket ship motor in F1 over the last 10 years. In the C63 S, it produces 476 horsepower. That's 70 horsepower more than the C43 and also the old C55 supercharged cars. But that's just the combustion engine. We also have an electric motor over the rear axle producing 204 horsepower. Combine the two and you get a staggering, if only temporary, 680 horsepower and 752 pounds-feet of torque. That doesn't just edge the old C63, it completely blows it out of the water. Power is sent to all four wheels through a 9-speed automatic gearbox, but you also have a dual differential at the back of the car, which essentially serves as a dual gearbox for the electric motor. So instead of having just one gear, to again maximize torque and power, you'll have two gear shifts, a bit like a Porsche Taycan. So you're looking at a 0 to 62 time of 3.4 seconds, absolutely staggering for an estate car, and it'll go all the way up to a limited 174 miles an hour. Of course, if you find somebody who knows what they're doing with electronics and chips, I wouldn't be surprised if what you're looking at here is the first 200 mile an hour capable C-Class. Bonkers. We've also got torque vectoring, which can send up to 100% of the electric power to one individual wheel to make the car a little bit more agile and also help you kick the back out if you want to get a little bit slidey. Now, with an electric motor, we need a battery pack, and in the C63 S E Performance, it's a 400-volt, 6.1 kilowatt-hour pack with 560 cells, each of which is liquid-cooled by 14 litres of coolant to maintain an optimum temperature of 45 degrees C. It'll keep that temperature even when you're hammering around a racetrack, which is seriously impressive. Now again, this has been taken from the boffins at Brixworth. It's Formula One technology and essentially allows you to discharge and recharge the battery pretty damn quickly over the course of a racing lap. Now at 86 kilograms, it's not the lightest thing in the world, but compared to full EV batteries, which can be in the hundreds of kilos, it's not that bad. And also Mercedes says it's extremely efficient, courtesy of that liquid cooling. It's about twice the efficiency of a standard battery in an EV or one of its plug-in hybrids. Now, when you're just driving around town in, say, comfort mode, the electric motor will be used in conjunction with the combustion engine to help eke out a bit more fuel, with Mercedes aiming for around 41 mpg. I know it's kind of boring stuff, but this here is an estate car. A lot of people are going to be using this as their daily driver, and mpg matters, particularly if you're swapping over to a four-cylinder car. Now it's also a plug-in hybrid, which means that you can charge it up and use it on electric power alone for up to 8 miles. The only thing though is because it is reliant on battery technology, if you run out of battery power, that's it. You then switch over to the combustion engine and you're going to lose a fair bit of performance. Now, your options there are you can either go and plug it in, charge it up at a charger and be on your way again, or you can use the combustion engine to help top up the battery. I don't know how that's going to feel in real world running, but it's just worth bearing in mind.
Everything has changed under the skin, but it's all wrapped in a reassuringly familiar AMG design. The grille is big, but not oversized. There are no unnecessary flicks or creases, just a design that hints at the 680 horsepower power plant within, rather than scream about it. You might think it's boring, and if that's the case, there's a Munich-based car maker with a few cars that I'm sure will be right up your alley.
But this, to my eyes, is how a proper German performance car should look. Subtle, but functional. So we have the Panamericana style grille that is distinctly AMG, and we've also got a new Affalterbach logo as well, which we'll see on some other AMG models in the future. We've also got a little vent up here on the bonnet. This is actually functional because although we've got a 2-litre in here, it gets very hot and needs to channel some of that hot air out. We've also got functioning grills down here too in this AMG 1 style big inlet. Very mean, very purposeful. At the side, we've got these awesome 20-inch wheels that kind of have this half dinner plate style design. Now, you will be able to get 19 inches in other markets, but in the UK, we're only getting the 20s. We'll also get these carbon ceramic brakes as standard too. In other markets, those will be optional extras. And I don't know what tyres the car is actually going to come with, but the one that we have here is on Michelin Pilot Sport 4Ss. Of course, we've also got slightly flared wheel arches, and that's to accommodate a 75mm increase on the front track width. But the only thing I have a problem with is that these vents down here, completely fake. Come on, AMG. Now we flip the car, we can see just how long it is. It's actually 55mm longer than a standard C-Class, and that's to accommodate the new engine and also all the cooling that goes with it. And so even though AMG has managed to downsize the engine drastically, this thing is really quite heavy. It's 2,111 kilograms for the saloon version, or 2,145 kilos for the estate that we have here, and it's all because of the electric stuff. Now we're at the back, we can have a look at the quad exhaust system, which has actually changed a little bit over the old car. It's got this kind of little ribbed effect around the outside, which apparently does have a very small cooling benefit. However, the actual exhaust itself isn't connected up to the tips, they're just there for show, pretty much like every other AMG that's come out. Now, Mercedes tells me that they have actually worked on the underfloor of the car. It's not completely flat, but you will find some little winglets under there to just help channel air out the back and towards a functioning diffuser. Now, this is PistonHeads. We don't usually care about things like boot space, but as this is the estate car, I thought I would just run over it because people are going to be using this as their daily driver. Now, from what I can tell, it's a smaller boot than what you'd get on a regular C-Class estate. I haven't got the official numbers just yet, but because this is a plug-in hybrid, we've got all the electric bits and batteries in the boot here, and it does mean you have a smaller space than what you would do if this thing didn't come with all the hybrid bits. Now, the inside is pretty standard C-Class, as you probably expect, but I'll get the boring bit out of the way first. I don't know how much the new C63 S is going to cost, but I do know that all cars in the UK are going to be pretty much fully loaded. That includes the 20-inch wheels that we got on the outside. You'll also be able to get this carbon interior and also the Burmeister sound system. With that out of the way, we need to talk about the driver modes because they are utterly ridiculous. There are 8 driver modes to choose from, starting off with the usual stuff, your comfort, sport, sport plus, fully electric mode, but there are also 2 extremes as well. You've got something called battery hold, which will essentially reserve a little bit of the battery so that when you get to your favorite stretch of road or whatever, you can then go and chuck it into one of the sport settings and you'll still have some battery left over to really hammer the car. You've also got individual, of where you can change things like the drive modes, the suspension, and also AMG dynamics, so how leery you want the thing to be. And there's also a full track mode. Now, when you go in full track mode, you basically unlock the full amount of power. However, as I said earlier, you have up to 680 horsepower and it's temporary. So the way you unlock the full 680 is there's a clever little software program built into the throttle pedal. So when you go fully flat down to the base of the throttle, you'll get a 10-second boost, and that's when you unlock the full 680 horsepower. And after those 10 seconds, it'll then dip down. Mercedes hasn't given me an exact figure just yet, but it's between about 550 and 600 horsepower. Now, when you're hammering around a track, because you've got all of that clever battery cooling stuff, it's actually able to recharge the battery relatively quickly. Now, of course, you won't be topping the whole thing up with some heavy braking, but it means that if you are lapping, you should be able to make up some of that battery power that you use on the full 680 horsepower boost when you really get on the anchors. So you can lap this thing all day without really chewing through the entire battery. Now, all the driver modes are controlled on this little dial on the right-hand side, and if you press it, you can then go into some of the more adjustable settings. On the left, we've actually got these two shortcuts. One goes through the transmission settings and the other for the exhaust system. But you can actually customize those. So if you want other aspects of the car to adjust on the fly, you can then go and program that through the central display. Onto the central display, there is so much in here to go through. It'll literally take me all day to go through every little setting, but you've got some really cool features in here. So yeah, you've got the standard stuff like adjusting the ambient lighting, but there's an app called Track Pace. Now, this is something that you can get in other AMGs, and it is exceptionally cool. It essentially allows you to monitor your telemetry when you're going around a track, such as your Gs, but you can also go for different things as well, like your steering angle or your lateral acceleration. And because the screen is so big, you can show this to your friends as well, which I'm sure they'll find extremely exciting. There's also a drag race mode that will help you time your 0 to 60 starts and also gives you a little countdown for when you're ready to go. And there's also something called Track Race. Now, in Track Race, you can load up different circuits from around the world, and if you're really savvy and you've got the AMG app, it'll actually record your lap and then create a social media edit for you and email it to you on your phone, all automatically. How ridiculously clever is that? And it's a great way of, again, showing your friends just how much you love your AMG. But what I find really cool is they've now introduced a new display setting for the central screen for Track Race. So if you select something in the telemetry menu, let's say you want to monitor your longitudinal acceleration and your acceleration pedal, you'll actually be able to see that on the screen in front of you. But the cherry on the cake is the new head-up display. So when you look at the head-up display, yes, you see things like your speed and such, but what it can do is it'll monitor, if you're at a racetrack, your first lap. It'll then create a driving line of where you have been, and it will also project your fastest ghost in front of you on the head-up display. So when you're driving along, you have a ghost to chase. I can't believe Gran Turismo has literally become a reality with the C63 E Performance. So the new C63 S makes a very good first impression. And if you're a tech fan, there's a lot to love here. That ultra complicated powertrain, battery cooling, and there's plenty of tech inside to waste hours on, from changing the different driver modes and the ambient lighting. But there are still some unanswered questions. How does it keep all that weight in check? How quickly does it churn through the battery? How much does it cost? And crucially, does it give you all the sounds and sensations we've come to expect from a C63 S? Now, this is a pre-production car. I can't fire it up, we can't listen to the exhaust just yet, but be sure to subscribe to PistonHeads, so when we are throwing the keys, we'll have a review of this straight away. Can't wait.